As a teacher, we learn to improvise and work on the fly. My very first job interview was not that long ago. In fact, it seems like just yesterday. I've only been teaching for 3 years, but in that first opportunity to try to get that undescribable job, my hope was that I would be able to get a job in a Title I school. My very first job fair was in Washington State, and as an Idaho grad, I wasn't really sure what I was doing. I asked my instructors, and they tried to provide some guidance, but ultimately it was up to me to figure out this new system and get my certification in another state. At this wonderful job fair that I had an opportunity to attend and get to know these other districts, they were actually hiring that day. I had the very first interview that I'd ever had as a teacher, and I was as nervous as I could possibly be. I ended up meeting someone who would change my life forever, and her name was Sara. She was a first-year teacher just like me and hoping to land that coveted contract at that event. She had a bright and bubbly personality, and when I struck up a conversation with her, she immediately whipped out this brochure that she had designed with her face on the cover, and she was that kind of teacher everyone wishes that they had had. And I was very fortunate to then form a fast and lasting friendship with her that would carry us through that precarious first year of teaching. Now, I got my first job at a different school than she did, but she was also an incredible, comforting person in my life at that time. I was very fortunate to be able to start at this new career with the support of lots of people around me. My mother and aunt have been teaching for over 20 years, and they're some of the most inspiring people that I'm able to be around. In addition to that, because my mother taught at the school that I grew up in, I had an entire community of educators behind me. Very trepidatious first year. At my school, at Trent Elementary, 8 in 10 of our students are faced with food insecurity, and they come to school terrified every single day. And it's a very difficult thing for them to just walk into a classroom, let alone feel successful as learners. In addition to that, 1 in 4 of them also is qualifying for an individualized education plan. That means they need a ton of extra support and time and attention to become successful learners in my classroom. I know it's tough for me to be at my best when I'm not feeling very comfortable. Raise your hand if you're in the same boat. It's my job to make sure that they are cared for as a whole person and not just as a little robot trying to get a score on a standardized test. How can an individual teacher make a difference in a system that feels like it can eat you alive? With district mandates, state mandates, national mandates coming down to put pressure on you at every angle. And the director of our schools not always understanding what it's like to be a teacher, and most importantly, in an era where the Secretary of Education, Betsy DeVos, has never been a teacher and doesn't have any intention of visiting a school like mine, and in addition to that, doesn't know what teachers really need. How can we really overcome the challenges in our very first year? There are varying degrees of support that districts can provide to brand new teachers. They range from 0 to as much support as you could possibly imagine. My district fell somewhere in the middle. But ultimately, at the end of the day, as brand new teachers, we have to be able to support ourselves and guide ourselves through this process because you just don't know what kind of support you'll be given. In my personal life, I've had some really significant trials that I've had to overcome, and none of them would compare to my first year of teaching. You could spend 24 hours a day preparing for this career, and you would never be able to do everything that you could do to help a child. That said, there are some ways that you can help yourself survive, whether you're a first-year teacher, a 30-year teacher, or even in any other field that helped me to overcome all of those challenges as well. 1, be gentle with yourself. Know that everyone is just a beginner when they first start at something, and they can't be an expert right away. And that's perfectly fine. We sometimes put so much pressure on ourselves, especially if we're a perfectionist like I tend to be. If you're a teacher, you know what I'm talking about. And in order to be able to let yourself just experience the glory of this profession, you have to allow yourself to fail sometimes. Next, be experimental. This was something that I was afraid to do in my first year, but I was so excited to take all of those incredible strategies and resources I had just learned in my college experience and apply them in the classroom. I ended up taking on a brand new project and started a drama club at our school. I also go every single year to the International Society of Technology Educators Conference to try to prepare these 21st century learners for jobs that aren't even created yet. Isn't that incredible? As teachers, we have to give them the education they'll need for something we don't even know that exists yet. Third, be open to feedback and find a mentor. I can tell you I would never have survived my first year if it hadn't been for the listening ear of those incredible teachers that I mentioned earlier, my mom, my aunt, the teachers from when I was growing up. And I also happened to be in our school, placed in a wing with the kindergarten hall. And so all of those teachers would come out at the end of the day and just wait and listen to hear my successes, to hear my struggles, and to comfort me in my failures. I know for certain that without their support and help, I may not have come back for a second year in the classroom. Fourth, be self-aware. You have to take your own pulse sometimes and know what you're capable of. If you can't judge whether you've crossed the line or you're just approaching it, you're probably going to go to the point of exhaustion and overwhelm. If you can just listen to the voice in your heart that says no or yes to any question you're asked, you'll be a lot more successful in the long run. And sometimes that answer is yes. Like being asked to do a TED Talk, for example. It's terrifying, but sometimes that's an incredible opportunity that you just can't pass up. Lastly, and most importantly, be the teacher that you wish you had when you were growing up. I know every one of us in this classroom has been impacted by a truly special teacher at some point in our lives. And it may have been that one decision that changed our entire life that that teacher made in that moment in the classroom where they put aside curriculum and they put aside the lesson and the learning target and just listened and encouraged and built that person up. Every one of us has the opportunity to thank those teachers too, and I sure hope you do that at some point this week. When it comes to teachers who truly excel in the classroom at being that amazing dynamic individual, again, my mind wanders to my friend Sara. She and I had so much in common, more than just being a first-year teacher, but we had similar views, we had similar taste in music, and through that friendship that we developed, we eventually learned that we had one more thing in common, and it was something I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. See, a year ago, just 2 years after being in the classroom, Sara was diagnosed with some tumors in her spinal cord that completely derailed her young life. We were the same age. We were active. We were professionals. We didn't expect something like this to hit us like a Mack truck. Through that year, I encouraged and supported her to the best of my ability. And as her health deteriorated, as this new year began in 2018, I was also diagnosed with a tumor near my pancreas that stopped my life in its tracks. For 8 weeks, I was out of the classroom that I treasured so much, and Sara had also been out for the entire year. Matter of fact, one of my twin sons was actually a student in her classroom, and we all longed for the opportunity for her to come back so we could celebrate her recovery. Sadly, that recovery never came, and she wanted more than anything just to have an opportunity to go back and be with the students that she'd worked so hard to achieve the education to guide and nurture. In the last letter she sent me, she said, "It's funny how our lives keep intersecting the way they do, teaching, politically, in school, and beyond. You and I have been connected for some reason, and I want to believe that that reason is yet to be seen. We have been convinced that this would be just a one-year battle, and I'd go back to my true calling, those kiddos. It's the saddest thing for me that I won't get to know your little guys this year. Truly, it was one of my goals. I can't wait to see the big things that you do and what God has planned for you. That personality and passion is too big to be held down by this ugly disease." 2 days after she sent me that heart-wrenching email, I found out that my tumor was not cancerous. At one time, I wanted to celebrate, but at the same time, I knew I was losing my treasured friend, and I didn't know how to tell her. Just 2 weeks after that, Sara lost her battle. And it just blows me away that her teacher's heart, in her declining health, when she was losing her family and as her cognitive abilities began to fade, that she took the time to reach out to me as a good teacher would and build me up when I was most afraid. When it comes to supporting first-year teachers, I don't have all the answers. I'm proud to be in a profession with some pretty incredible individuals who continue to inspire me every single day that I walk into my own classroom. Teachers like Sara are all across our nation, and though we may not lose them, they still pour their entire heart and soul into what they accomplish. I hope that as a nation we can start to find some answers to help our educational system and build teachers up to be all that they can be, because ultimately, what we care about is individual students becoming young adults. I hope that with the right support, we can make sure that first-year teachers have a successful year in their classroom and that they can be successful, not just in their first year, but beyond. Please thank a teacher today. This is for Sara.